Maya Johnson adjusted her elegant black dress one final time before stepping out of her car at the grand entrance of the Whitmore estate. The mansion stood like a fortress against the night sky, its windows glowing with warm light that spilled onto the perfectly manicured gardens. Tonight was the annual charity gala hosted by the Whitmore family, one of the wealthiest dynasties in the country, and Maya had received an invitation that surprised many in her circle. As the CEO and founder of Johnson Tech Solutions, Maya had built her company from nothing into a billion-dollar empire specializing in sustainable technology and renewable energy systems. Her innovative solar panel designs and energy storage solutions had revolutionized the industry, making her one of the most influential black women in tech. At 38, she commanded respect in boardrooms across the globe. Yet tonight she felt a familiar tension in her shoulders as she approached the mansion's golden doors. The valet, a young man in a crisp uniform, looked at her with barely concealed surprise before quickly composing himself. Maya was used to such reactions. Despite her success, she often found herself being the only person of color in rooms filled with old money and inherited wealth. She handed him her keys with a polite smile, refusing to let his momentary confusion affect her confidence. Inside, the mansion was even more impressive than its exterior suggested. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across marble floors, while guests in designer gowns and tailored suits mingled beneath oil paintings worth more than most people's homes. The air hummed with conversations about stock portfolios, yacht acquisitions, and exotic vacation destinations. Maya recognized many faces from business magazines and society pages, though she suspected few would recognize her despite her company's recent feature on the cover of Forbes. She made her way to the bar, ordering a glass of sparkling water with lime. The bartender, professional and courteous, served her quickly before turning to assist a couple who had approached. Maya used the moment to survey the room, noting the casual way wealth was displayed here, not through flashy jewelry or obvious status symbols, but through the quiet confidence that came with generational money and social position. The reason for Maya's invitation became clear when she spotted Harrison Whitmore III across the room. The 70-year-old patriarch of the Whitmore family was deep in conversation with several other business leaders, his silver hair perfectly styled, and his navy suit impeccably tailored. Whitmore Industries had been courting Johnson Tech Solutions for months, hoping to secure a partnership that would modernize their aging manufacturing facilities with Maya's cutting-edge sustainable technology. The potential deal was worth $5 billion and would transform Whitmore Industries from a traditional manufacturing company into a leader in green technology. For Maya, it represented not just a massive contract, but validation that her vision for sustainable business practices was being embraced by even the most established corporations. The partnership would also create thousands of jobs and significantly reduce carbon emissions across multiple industries. Maya had spent weeks preparing for tonight, knowing that formal negotiations would likely begin after the social pleasantries were concluded. Her team had developed a comprehensive proposal that would benefit both companies while advancing environmental goals that were close to Maya's heart. She believed deeply that business success and environmental responsibility could go hand in hand, and this partnership would prove that point on a massive scale. As she moved through the crowd, Maya noticed the subtle but unmistakable signs of her outsider status. Conversations paused when she approached, only to resume with slightly forced politeness. Eyes followed her movements with curiosity rather than recognition. Several guests offered polite nods and brief smiles, but no one approached her with genuine interest or warmth. The irony wasn't lost on her that in a room full of people whose wealth often came from inheritance or fortunate circumstances, she was probably one of the few who had truly earned every dollar through innovation, hard work, and business acumen. Yet she remained on the periphery, an invited guest who was welcome but not quite belonging to this exclusive world. Maya caught sight of herself in one of the ornate mirrors lining the ballroom wall. She looked elegant and confident, her natural hair styled in an updo that showcased diamond earrings she had bought herself to celebrate her company's latest breakthrough. Her dress, chosen specifically for tonight, was sophisticated without being flashy, designed to command respect in any boardroom or social gathering. She thought about her journey to this moment, the late nights in her garage workshop, the rejections from investors who couldn't see past their preconceptions, The breakthrough moments when her innovations finally gained recognition. Every challenge had made her stronger and more determined to succeed not just for herself, but for the young black women who would follow in her footsteps. The gala was in full swing now, with guests moving between the main ballroom, the library where a jazz quartet played softly, and the conservatory where an elaborate buffet had been arranged. Maya decided to explore the space, hoping to encounter Harrison Whitmore or other key decision-makers in a more relaxed setting than a formal business meeting would provide. As she walked toward the conservatory, Maya noticed a group of younger Whitmore family members gathered near the grand staircase. They appeared to be in their 20s and 30s, likely Harrison's children and their spouses. Their laughter carried across the room, loud enough to draw attention from other guests. Something about their body language and the way they kept glancing in her direction made Maya pause. She had learned to trust her instincts in business and social situations, and right now those instincts were telling her that she had somehow become the subject of their amusement. Maya took a sip of her sparkling water and continued toward the conservatory, but she remained alert to the dynamics playing out around her. Tonight was too important for her company's future to let social discomfort derail her focus, but she couldn't shake the feeling that the evening was about to take an unexpected turn. Maya was admiring an elaborate ice sculpture when she heard footsteps approaching behind her. She turned to find herself face to face with three members of the Whitmore family. Bradley Whitmore, Harrison's eldest son and heir apparent to the family fortune. His wife Victoria, a blonde socialite known more for her charity galas than any real accomplishments. And Bradley's younger sister Charlotte, whose main claim to fame was her Instagram following and expensive shopping habits. Well, Bradley said with a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. You must be lost. The service entrance is around back. His comment was delivered with just enough volume to catch the attention of nearby guests, who began to turn and stare. Maya felt her spine straighten instinctively. I'm sorry, I don't think we've been properly introduced. I'm Maya Johnson, CEO of Johnson Tech Solutions. She extended her hand professionally, though she could already sense the hostility radiating from the group. Victoria let out a tinkling laugh that sounded like breaking glass. Oh, how precious. She thinks she belongs here with the grown-ups. She looked Maya up and down with obvious disdain. That's a lovely dress, dear. Did you rent it for the occasion? I know how expensive proper evening wear can be. The insult hit its mark and Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. Around them, more guests had stopped their conversations to watch the interaction unfold. Some looked uncomfortable, others curious, but no one stepped forward to intervene. Maya realized she was completely alone in this moment, surrounded by wealth and privilege that saw her as an interloper, despite her invitation and accomplishments. Charlotte joined the attack with the casual cruelty that only comes from a lifetime of entitlement. Bradley, don't be mean. I'm sure she works very hard cleaning offices or whatever it is she does. It's actually quite sweet that someone thought to invite the help to our little party. She giggled as if she had made a particularly clever joke. Maya's hands clenched at her sides, but she kept her voice steady and professional. I'm here as an invited guest to discuss a potential business partnership with your father. Perhaps we could continue this conversation at a more appropriate time. She tried to step around them, but Bradley moved to block her path. Business partnership? Bradley's voice grew louder, ensuring that even more people could hear. Let me guess, you're selling something. Maybe you do windows? Or perhaps you're here to pitch some kind of diversity program? My father is always getting pressured to throw money at these social justice causes. The circle of onlookers had grown, and Maya could see phones being discreetly raised to record the confrontation. She realized that anything she said or did now could end up on social media within minutes, potentially damaging not just her personal reputation, but her company's as well. The thought of her employees and investors seeing her humiliated on the internet made her stomach turn. Victoria stepped closer, her voice dropping to a mock whisper that was still audible to the crowd. I have to admire your confidence coming to a place like this. But honey, this isn't the kind of neighborhood where you just walk up to someone's door. Security really should have checked the guest list more carefully. Maybe she's here to audition for the entertainment, Charlotte added with malicious glee. I heard Daddy was thinking of hiring a jazz singer for next year's gala. Do you sing, dance? I bet you're very rhythmic. The racist implications of her comment hung in the air like poison. Maya felt the familiar, weight of representing not just herself, but every black person who had ever been made to feel unwelcome in spaces like this. She thought of her parents, who had worked multiple jobs to pay for her education, and her grandmother, who had cleaned houses for wealthy families while dreaming of a better future for her descendants. The Whitmore's words weren't just attacking her. They were attacking generations of struggle and achievement. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Maya said, her voice carrying clearly across the room. "I'm here because Whitmore Industries has been pursuing a $5 billion partnership with my company. Perhaps you should speak with your father before making assumptions about his business decisions." Bradley's face darkened at the mention of the massive deal. $5 billion? From some tech startup nobody's ever heard of. That's rich. Did you just Google our company and decide to crash our party with some fantasy pitch? He turned to the crowd with theatrical disbelief. "Can you believe the audacity?" The humiliation was complete when Harrison Whitmore himself appeared at the edge of the circle, drawn by the commotion. Maya felt a moment of relief, thinking the family patriarch would put an end to his children's behavior and restore some dignity to the situation. Instead, Harrison looked at her with mild confusion before his expression shifted to embarrassment. "I'm terribly sorry," Harrison said, addressing Maya with the careful politeness reserved for service workers. "There seems to have been some kind of mix-up with the catering staff tonight. You shouldn't be in the main ballroom area. If you could please return to the kitchen, I'm sure the head of catering can sort out whatever problem brought you here." The words hit Maya like a physical blow. Even Harrison, who had been personally involved in courting her company, failed to recognize her outside the context of a business setting. To him, a black woman at his party could only be staff, regardless of her clothing, demeanor, or the invitation she carried in her purse. Maya looked around the room at the sea of faces watching her humiliation with varying degrees of amusement, discomfort, and satisfaction. She realized that no matter what she said or how she explained herself, the damage was done. These people had revealed their true nature, showing that beneath their polished exteriors lay the same prejudices and assumptions that had held back progress for generations. The phones continued recording, and Maya knew that by morning, videos of this encounter would be spreading across social media platforms. The headlines would write themselves, "Black Woman Crashes Elite Party," or "Charity Gala Disrupted by Uninvited Guest." The truth about her invitation and her company's potential partnership would be buried beneath the spectacle of her humiliation. In that moment, Maya made a decision that would change everything. Instead of arguing or trying to prove her legitimacy to people who had already made up their minds, she would let her actions speak louder than any words ever could. She smiled politely at Harrison and his family, her expression giving nothing away of the storm building inside her. "Thank you for a very enlightening evening," Maya said with quiet dignity. "I believe I've learned everything I need to know." She turned and walked toward the exit, her head held high despite the whispers and stares that followed her every step. Maya drove home through the empty streets, her hands gripping the steering wheel as she processed what had just happened. The city lights blurred past her windows, but her mind was racing with the implications of the evening's events. She pulled into her driveway and sat in the silence of her car for several minutes, trying to center herself before facing what she knew was coming. Inside her modern home, Maya poured herself a glass of wine and settled into her home office. She opened her laptop and began drafting an email to her legal team. But before she could finish the first paragraph, her phone started buzzing with notifications. Text messages from friends, missed calls from business associates, and dozens of social media alerts flooded her screen. The videos had already begun circulating. Maya watched in horrified fascination as multiple angles of her humiliation played out across Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. The clips showed her being confronted by the Whitmore family, their sneering faces and dismissive gestures captured in high definition. Comments ranged from outraged support to cruel mockery, with hashtags like "Black Woman Disrespected" and "Whitmore Scandal" trending within hours. One video, posted by a guest who had been standing nearby, captured audio clearly enough that viewers could hear every insulting word. Victoria's comment about renting the dress had been turned into a meme within an hour. Charlotte's racist implications about rhythm and entertainment were being shared by civil rights organizations as examples of ongoing discrimination in elite circles. Maya's phone rang, and she saw her publicist's name on the screen. Maya, thank God you're answering. We need to do damage control immediately. The story is everywhere and we need to get ahead of it before what? Maya interrupted. Before people see how these supposed pillars of society really behave. Before they understand what black women face even when we've achieved everything we're supposed to achieve. Her publicist paused. I understand you're upset, and rightfully so. But we need to think strategically about your company's reputation. This could affect investor confidence, client relationships, and Maya ended the call and turned back to her laptop. She opened her social media accounts and began reading the thousands of comments and shares. Many people expressed outrage and support, sharing their own stories of discrimination and exclusion. But others questioned why she had been at the party in the first place, suggesting she must have done something to provoke such treatment. The most painful comments came from those who assumed she was lying about her business success, claiming that a black woman couldn't possibly run a billion-dollar tech company. These commenters shared the Whitmore's assumption that she must have been serving staff or some kind of imposter. The doubt and suspicion cut deeper than the original insults. By morning, the story had been picked up by major news outlets. Maya's doorbell rang constantly with reporters seeking comments, and her company's stock price began fluctuating wildly as investors tried to assess the impact of the viral incident. Her assistant called to inform her that 3 scheduled business meetings had been postponed indefinitely, and 2 potential clients had requested time to reevaluate their partnership strategies. Maya spent the day fielding calls from civil rights organizations, women's business groups, and advocacy networks. Everyone wanted her to become a spokesperson for discrimination in corporate America, to transform her humiliation into a platform for change. While she appreciated the support, Maya was more focused on the business implications of what had happened. The real shock came when Harrison Whitmore's office called that afternoon. His assistant, speaking in carefully neutral tones, informed Maya that, due to recent developments and changing business priorities, Whitmore Industries would be exploring alternative solutions for their sustainability initiatives. The $5 billion deal that had been months in the making was being terminated before negotiations had even begun. Maya sat in stunned silence after the call ended. She had expected the social humiliation and media attention, but the swift business retaliation caught her off guard. The Whitmores weren't just content. With their public display of prejudice, they were now using their economic power to punish her for the embarrassment their own behavior had caused. Her head of legal affairs arrived within an hour, carrying a briefcase full of documents and wearing an expression that mixed concern with barely contained anger. Maya, we need to discuss our options here. What happened last night goes beyond social media drama. This is discrimination that resulted in direct business harm, and we have witnesses, video evidence, and a clear pattern of behavior. Together, they spent hours reviewing the footage, documenting the timeline of events, and analyzing the potential legal remedies available. Maya learned that several other guests had reached out through back channels, expressing disgust at the Whitmore's behavior and offering to provide testimony if needed. Some had been recording the incident themselves and were willing to share their footage for legal purposes. The irony was stark. Maya's company had developed revolutionary technology that could transform entire industries. Her innovations had earned recognition from environmental groups and business leaders worldwide, and her financial success had been built on genuine merit and groundbreaking achievements. Yet none of that mattered to people who saw only her race and made assumptions based on centuries-old prejudices. As evening approached, Maya found herself looking at the formal invitation to the Whitmore Gala, which still sat on her desk. The elegant paper with its gold embossing had seemed like a symbol of progress and acceptance just 24 hours earlier. Now it felt like evidence of a cruel deception, a false promise of equality in spaces where equality would never truly exist. Her phone buzzed with a text from her youngest employee, a recent engineering graduate who idolized Maya's success story. I saw the videos. I'm so sorry this happened to you, but I want you to know that watching you walk out with dignity made me proud to work for this company. Whatever you decide to do next, we're behind you. The message reminded Maya that her response to this situation would be watched not just by the business world, but by young people who saw her as proof that barriers could be broken. She thought about her responsibility to them, to her employees, and to her own sense of integrity. The Whitmores had made a critical error in underestimating her, and Maya was beginning to formulate a response that would demonstrate the true cost of their prejudice. She opened her laptop and began typing, not an apology or explanation, but a carefully crafted strategy that would show the world what happened when ignorance collided with innovation, when old money faced new power, and when the consequences of discrimination extended far beyond hurt feelings into realms where Maya held all the advantages. Maya arrived at her office building the next morning to find a crowd of supporters holding signs with messages like Black, Excellence and Respect Maya Johnson. The demonstration had been organized overnight by grassroots activists who had seen the viral videos, and their presence both touched and energized her. She stopped to thank the organizers before entering through the lobby, where her entire staff of 300 employees had gathered to show their solidarity. The spontaneous show of support reminded Maya of what she had built over the past 15 years. Johnson Tech Solutions wasn't just a company. It was a symbol of innovation and inclusion in an industry that had traditionally excluded people who looked like her. Her employees represented dozens of nationalities and backgrounds, united by their commitment to developing technology that could address climate change while creating sustainable economic opportunities. In her corner office, Maya spread out documents that would change everything. Her legal team had been working through the night, and what they had discovered went far beyond the simple partnership proposal she had originally planned to discuss with Harrison Whitmore. Maya's company held patents on 17 critical technologies that were essential for any major manufacturer, hoping to meet new environmental regulations set to take effect within the next 2 years. These weren't just nice-to-have innovations, they were mandatory technologies for companies wanting to continue operating in multiple states and international markets. Maya's solar integration systems, energy storage solutions, and waste reduction technologies had become industry standards, licensed to hundreds of companies worldwide. What she hadn't fully realized until now was just how dependent major manufacturers like Whitmore Industries had become on her innovations. Her chief technology officer knocked and entered, carrying a tablet loaded with data that made Maya's position even stronger. Maya, I've been analyzing our patent portfolio and licensing agreements all night. The Whitmores aren't just losing a potential $5 billion partnership. If we terminate our existing licensing deals with them, they'll be unable to meet federal environmental standards for their manufacturing facilities. Maya studied the information with growing awareness of her leverage. Whitmore Industries had been using Johnson Tech Solutions' patented emissions control systems for 3 years, under a licensing agreement that was due for renewal in 6 months. Without these systems, their factories would violate Environmental Protection Agency standards and face massive fines or forced shutdowns. Additionally, Maya's company controlled key patents for sustainable packaging materials that Whitmore Industries used across their entire product line. The contract for these materials was worth $800 million annually and had made Whitmore's products competitive in environmentally conscious markets. Losing access to these innovations would force them to redesign their entire manufacturing process at enormous cost. Maya's head of business development arrived with even more revealing information. I've been reviewing our contracts with Whitmore's suppliers and competitors. Maya, your technology is so deeply integrated into the modern manufacturing ecosystem that pulling out would create a domino effect. 15 other companies that work with Whitmore depend on our systems, and 3 of their biggest competitors have been trying to secure exclusive licensing deals with us for months. The full scope of Maya's power became clear as she reviewed document after document. Her company wasn't just successful, it was indispensable. The green technology revolution that she had helped pioneer meant that major corporations could no longer operate without the innovations she had developed. The Whitmores had treated her like an unwelcome outsider, not realizing they were insulting someone who held the keys to their future profitability. Maya called an emergency meeting with her executive team to discuss strategy. In the conference room, her top lieutenants, brilliant minds she had, recruited from around the world, presented options that ranged from measured business responses to what one executive called the nuclear option. The nuclear option involved terminating all existing contracts with Whitmore Industries and their affiliated companies, effectively forcing them out of several major markets. If we do this, her chief financial officer warned, it sends a message to every corporation in America. It shows that discrimination has real consequences. But it also shows that we're willing to use our market position for social and political purposes. Some potential clients might see that as a risk. Maya considered the warning carefully. She had built her company by focusing on innovation and excellence, avoiding the kind of political controversies that could alienate business partners. But the Whitmores had made the situation political by treating her with public disrespect based solely on her race. Their actions had already cost her the $5 billion deal and damaged her company's reputation in some circles. Her youngest vice president, a brilliant engineer who had joined the company straight from graduate school, spoke up with quiet intensity. "Maya, I've been thinking about this all night. We have 18 patents that are absolutely critical for meeting the new carbon emission standards. Companies that don't have access to our technology will be paying millions in fines starting next year. The Whitmores made this personal, but we can make our response about principle." Maya realized that her response could set a precedent for how successful minority business owners dealt with discrimination. If she chose the aggressive path, it would demonstrate that economic power could be a tool for demanding respect and equality. If she chose a more moderate approach, it might be seen as weakness or acceptance of the status quo. The afternoon brought unexpected allies. Maya's assistant announced that the CEOs of 3 major corporations had called requesting private meetings. These were companies that competed directly with Whitmore Industries and had witnessed their behavior at the gala. They weren't just offering moral support, they were proposing business deals that would more than compensate for the terminated Whitmore partnership. The first CEO to visit was Robert Chen, whose company manufactured electric vehicles. "Maya, what happened to you was disgusting, and frankly it reminded me why I avoid doing business with old money families like the Whitmores. I'd like to propose a partnership that would integrate your battery technology into our entire vehicle line. We're talking about a $7 billion deal over 5 years." The second visitor was Dr. Sarah Williams, who ran a renewable energy consortium. "We've been trying to reduce our dependence on companies with questionable values. If you're willing to provide exclusive licensing for your solar panel innovations, we can offer you a position on our board and a partnership worth $12 billion over the next decade." By the end of the day, Maya realized that the Whitmore's racist behavior had inadvertently revealed the true extent of her market power and opened doors to partnerships that were far more valuable than anything Harrison Whitmore had ever offered. The irony was perfect. Their attempt to diminish and exclude her had demonstrated just how essential her contributions were to the entire industry. Maya spent the evening reviewing contracts and proposals that would transform her company from a successful technology firm into an industry powerhouse with unprecedented influence. The Whitmores had gambled that they could humiliate her without consequences, assuming that their social status and inherited wealth made them untouchable. They were about to learn that in the modern economy, innovation and intellectual property mattered more than old family names and social connections. Maya had the power to reshape entire industries, and the Whitmores had just given her every reason to use that power against them. Maya called a press conference for Friday morning, giving herself 3 days to orchestrate what would become known as the most strategic business retaliation in modern corporate history. She spent those days meeting with lawyers, partners, and industry leaders, building a coalition that would reshape the sustainable technology landscape while delivering justice for the humiliation she had endured. The press conference was held in the main auditorium of Johnson Tech Solutions headquarters, a gleaming building that Maya had designed to showcase her company's commitment to environmental innovation. Reporters filled every seat while cameras captured the moment she stepped up to the podium wearing a navy blue suit that conveyed both professionalism and power. 3 days ago, I attended a charity gala where I was invited to discuss a potential $5 billion partnership, Maya began, her voice steady and controlled. Instead of business discussions, I was subjected to racist assumptions and public humiliation by members of the Whitmore family, who treated me as if I were serving staff, rather than the CEO of a company they had been courting for months. The audience was silent as Maya continued. The videos of this incident have been viewed millions of times, sparking important conversations about discrimination in corporate America. But today I'm here to announce that actions have consequences, especially when those actions target someone who controls critical technologies that entire industries depend upon. Maya gestured to a large screen behind her, which displayed a complex web of business relationships and patent licenses. Johnson Tech Solutions holds patents on 43 technologies that are essential for meeting environmental regulations in manufacturing, energy production, and transportation. Today, I'm announcing the termination of all business relationships with Whitmore Industries and their affiliated companies. The immediate impact was staggering. Maya explained that Whitmore Industries would lose access to emissions control systems worth $800 million annually, sustainable packaging technologies that generated another $600 million in revenue, and energy efficiency systems that had saved them over $1 billion in operating costs over the past 3 years. Without our patented technologies, Maya continued, Whitmore Industries will be unable to meet federal environmental standards beginning January 1st. They will face fines of up to $50 million per month for each non-compliant facility, and several of their manufacturing plants will be forced to shut down entirely. But Maya wasn't finished. She announced that Johnson Tech Solutions had signed exclusive partnerships with 3 of Whitmore's biggest competitors, deals worth a combined $22 billion over the next 7 years. These partnerships would not only replace the lost Whitmore revenue but would establish Maya's company as the dominant force in sustainable manufacturing technology. The strategic brilliance of Maya's response became clear as she detailed how each new partnership would directly undermine Whitmore's market position. Robert Chan's electric vehicle company would use Maya's battery technology to produce cars that were 30% more efficient than Whitmore's automotive division. Dr. Williams' renewable energy consortium would install solar systems using Maya's panels in every market where Whitmore had previously competed. Maya had also negotiated licensing deals that would allow her new partners to use previously exclusive technologies, flooding the market with superior alternatives to Whitmore products. Within 18 months, industry analysts predicted Whitmore Industries would lose their leadership position in 4 major market segments. The environmental impact of Maya's decision was equally significant. Her new partnerships would accelerate the development of clean technology, reduce global carbon emissions by an estimated 40 million tons annually, and create over 15,000 new jobs in the green energy sector. Maya had turned personal vindication into a victory for environmental progress and economic justice. During the question and answer session, a reporter asked whether Maya's response was proportional to the offense she had suffered. Her answer became the most quoted moment of the press conference. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. The Whitmore family revealed that they view successful Black women as servants and imposters. I'm simply responding by ensuring that their bigotry costs them everything they value most: money and market dominance. Another reporter asked about the broader implications for corporate America. Maya's response was measured but powerful. This should serve as a reminder that diversity and inclusion aren't just moral imperatives, they're business necessities. In today's economy, the people you dismiss and disrespect might be the same people who control the innovations your company depends on for survival. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours of the press conference, Whitmore Industries' stock price had dropped by 37%, wiping out billions in market value. Harrison Whitmore called an emergency board meeting while his children's social media accounts were flooded with criticism and calls for boycotts of family businesses. Maya's company stock, conversely, reached an all-time high as investors recognized the strategic value of her new partnerships and exclusive licensing deals. Business schools began analyzing her response as a masterclass in leveraging intellectual property and market position to achieve both business objectives and social justice. The technology industry rallied around Maya's decision, with other Black and minority business leaders praising her for demonstrating that success could be a platform for demanding respect, rather than simply hoping for acceptance. Several major corporations quietly reviewed their own supplier relationships, recognizing that their dependencies on minority-owned businesses made discriminatory behavior not just morally wrong, but financially dangerous. Maya spent the evening in her office, reviewing messages of support from around the world. Business leaders, politicians, activists, and ordinary citizens had reached out to express admiration for her strategic response to injustice. But the message that meant the most came from her grandmother, now 93 years old, who had lived through decades of discrimination and exclusion. Baby girl, the handwritten note read, "I spent my whole life cleaning the houses of people who thought they were better than me. I'm so proud that you found a way to make them understand that we are not just equal, we are essential. You didn't just stand up for yourself. You stood up for all of us. Maya realized that her victory over the Whitmores was about more than business revenge or personal vindication. She had demonstrated that in the modern economy, talent and innovation mattered more than inherited wealth and social status. She had shown that discrimination carried real costs, and that those costs could be devastating when directed at people who had built genuine power through their own achievements. The Whitmores had tried to put Maya in what they considered her proper place. Instead, they had helped her reveal that her proper place was at the top of an industry they desperately needed to access, holding the keys to technologies they couldn't live without, and controlling partnerships that would determine their future survival in an increasingly competitive and environmentally conscious marketplace. 6 months after the charity gala that changed everything, Maya stood in her new corner office on the top floor of a gleaming Manhattan skyscraper. Johnson Tech Solutions had expanded so rapidly following the Whitmore controversy that they had outgrown their original headquarters and moved to a building that symbolized their transformation from successful startup to industry titan. The view from her window included the Whitmore Industries building, where she could see moving trucks and security guards overseeing what local business news had dubbed the Great Downsizing. Harrison Whitmore's empire was crumbling in real time, and Maya had a front-row seat to watch the consequences of his family's arrogance and prejudice unfold. The numbers told a devastating story. Whitmore Industries had been forced to close 8 manufacturing facilities when they couldn't afford the environmental compliance fines that began accumulating in January. Their automotive division had lost 70% of its market share to competitors, using Maya's superior battery technology. The sustainable packaging arm of their business had collapsed entirely when Maya's exclusive partnerships made their products obsolete overnight. Maya's assistant knocked and entered with the morning briefing that had become a daily ritual. The Whitmore stock closed at $6 yesterday, down from $48 the day before your press conference. Industry analysts are predicting bankruptcy within 18 months unless they find some miracle solution to their technology gap. The irony was stark and satisfying. The same family that had treated Maya like an unwelcome intruder was now desperately trying to license her technologies through intermediary companies, offering prices that were 3 times the standard rate. Maya had instructed her legal team to reject every approach, no matter how lucrative the offers became. But Maya's victory extended far beyond simple revenge. Her company had become the most valuable privately held technology firm in America, with a market valuation that exceeded the entire Whitmore empire at its peak. The partnerships she had forged in response to the gala incident had created a sustainable technology ecosystem that was reshaping multiple industries while advancing environmental goals that were close to her heart. The social impact was equally profound. Maya had established the Johnson Foundation for Economic Justice, using 10% of her company's profits to support minority entrepreneurs and combat discrimination in corporate America. The foundation had already funded 50 startups led by women and people of color, creating a new generation of business leaders who would never have to endure the humiliation Maya had experienced. Maya's phone buzzed with a call from her head of corporate security. "Maya, we have a situation at the main entrance. Harrison Whitmore is here requesting a meeting. He doesn't have an appointment and he looks desperate." Maya considered the request for several minutes. Part of her wanted to send Harrison away without a word, to let him experience the same dismissal and disrespect his family had shown her. But another part of her was curious to hear what the man who had mistaken her for catering staff might say when his entire empire was collapsing because of technologies she controlled. Send him up, Maya decided, but have security wait outside my office. Harrison Whitmore looked like he had aged 10 years in 6 months. His usually perfect silver hair was disheveled, his expensive suit wrinkled, and his eyes held the desperate look of a man watching his legacy crumble. He entered Maya's office and stopped short when he saw her seated behind the massive oak desk, flanked by floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a commanding view of the city. "Ms. Johnson," Harrison began, his voice lacking its usual confidence and authority, "I want to apologize for what happened at the gala. My children's behavior was inexcusable and I should have recognized you immediately. I've come to ask if we might find a way to work together, to put this unfortunate incident behind us. Maya studied the man who had destroyed a $5 billion partnership because he couldn't see past his prejudices. "Mr. Whitmore, you had multiple opportunities to work with me. Your company pursued my business for months. Your staff knew exactly who I was, and you personally invited me to your gala. The problem wasn't recognition, it was respect." Harrison shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "I understand your anger, and I'm prepared to offer terms that go far beyond our original discussions. We're talking about a $10 billion partnership, with guaranteed minimums and profit-sharing arrangements that would benefit both our companies enormously." "You seem to be confused about something fundamental," Maya replied with calm precision. "I don't need Whitmore Industries anymore. In fact, the business world doesn't need Whitmore Industries anymore. Your company has become obsolete because you chose discrimination over partnership, prejudice over progress." She gestured toward a series of charts on her wall that tracked various market indicators. "Your automotive division is hemorrhaging customers to companies using my battery technology. Your manufacturing facilities are shutting down because they can't meet environmental standards without my systems. Your sustainable packaging business has collapsed because my partners now offer superior alternatives." Harrison's desperation became more apparent as he leaned forward in his chair. "Maya, may I call you Maya? I know we got off on the wrong foot, but surely we can find common ground. I'm prepared to make you a partner in Whitmore Industries to give you a seat on our board, whatever it takes to rebuild this relationship." Maya laughed, a sound that held no warmth or humor. "Mr. Whitmore, you're offering me a seat at a table that I don't want, in a company that won't exist much longer. 6 months ago, your family made it clear that they saw me as entertainment, as help, as anything except an equal. Now you want me to save the empire that your prejudice has destroyed." The conversation continued for another 20 minutes, with Harrison making increasingly desperate offers, and Maya calmly explaining why each proposal was irrelevant. She wasn't interested in rescuing the Whitmores from the consequences of their actions. She was building something better, something that reflected values of inclusion and innovation rather than inherited privilege and casual bigotry. After Harrison left, Maya returned to her desk and opened a document she had been working on for weeks. It was a business plan for the next phase of Johnson Tech Solutions' expansion, involving partnerships with governments and international organizations to accelerate global adoption of clean technology. The plan would create hundreds of thousands of jobs, reduce global carbon emissions by measurable percentages, and establish Maya's company as the most important technology firm of the 21st century. The Whitmore family had intended to put Maya in her place, to remind her that certain spaces weren't meant for people like her. Instead, they had revealed that her place was at the forefront of an industry transformation that would define the future of business and environmental responsibility. They had tried to diminish her, and in doing so, had elevated her to heights they could never reach. Maya's assistant knocked again, this time carrying an envelope with the presidential seal. Inside was an invitation to advise the White House on sustainable technology policy, recognizing her as one of the most influential business leaders in America. As she read the invitation, Maya thought about her journey from that humiliating night at the Whitmore Gala to this moment of unprecedented success and influence. The little girl who had grown up in a modest household, whose grandmother had cleaned houses for wealthy families, had become the woman whose innovations were reshaping the global economy. The Whitmores had gambled that their social status and inherited wealth made them untouchable. They had lost everything because they failed to understand that in the modern world, respect wasn't inherited. It was earned, and Maya had earned the right to determine their fate.